Means that Europe is now under threat as a result of this Iranian missile program. Now, the IDF, you can see in this video here over the weekend, is going after many of the storage facilities for Iran's ballistic missiles. They've also taken out a number of the country's launchers. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, describing what exactly the current Iranian missile threat looks like.
It's important that Europe now wakes up, understands that America and Israel, with the leadership of President Trump, are preventing a nuclear Iranian nightmare on all of Europe. We're fighting this war to protect them. Now the lie has been revealed. Iran has missiles that can reach Madrid, that can reach Berlin, that can reach Paris. And now they suddenly woke up and understand that they're under an Iranian threat.
At the location where we interviewed Bennett and Netanyahu, more than 100 people were wounded last night by a single Iranian ballistic missile when it exploded in a residential area. Peter?
Great reporting as always. Thank you, Trey. Let's bring in now the former commanding officer of the USS 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Kirk, somehow with whatever's left of Iran's military, they have fired for the first time these two IRBMs. We've got a map that we're going to put up. Intermediate range ballistic missiles. Iran missed. They were aiming at the U.S.-UK base in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia. But if they aim the other way, the left of this map, those IRBMs bring into their range Rome, Munich, Paris, London, Berlin, Oslo, and Moscow. How big of a problem is this?
It's a very big problem, Peter. When you look at it, what everyone has claimed, we had no imminent threat prior to this going. Number one, it proves the Iranians have been lying about their ballistic missile program the entire time. Number two, now the Europeans, with the largest land war since World War II going on with Ukraine and Russia, is now under threat from Iran as well. It is an active threat. We are in engaged conflict with Iran today, and the Europeans better now realize that when President Trump asks for their help, it's not just for us, it's for them as well.
And to your point there about the allies, if Iran has shown in the last 3 weeks that they will shoot missiles at their pals in the Gulf, what is stopping them from trying to hit Paris?
Absolutely nothing. And that's where the danger lies. Iran, as we continue to degrade their capability, as we continue to execute this military plan where we are gracefully degrading their capability to project power out from Iran, out into the Strait of Hormuz, we now need to be sure that we can also go after these intermediate-range ballistic missiles because they do represent a threat. And ultimately, Europe is going to have to get on board and join us to make sure that we can take Iran out, have a change of government, and allow the people to begin to build their future.
Are you surprised that after 3+ weeks of epic fury, big bombs going off all over Iran, their Army, Air Force, and Navies all decimated, that they can still blast off these intermediate-range ballistic missiles that could go thousands of miles, hit some European capital?
Peter, Iran's a big country. And they had a very dispersed military, just like we do around our country. And the fact is, they still have remnants that have capability. They're going to exercise that capability. And as the regime begins to degrade even further, when they sense they are actually going to lose power, what they're going to do is lash out in unpredictable ways. If you have an intermediate-range ballistic missile, what's to say that they can't plant something on that would be a true war changer on the continent of Europe? Because they're going to view Europe as aiding the United States, and they're going to begin to lash out in ways that are desperate to try and preserve their power.
We know commanders-in-chief don't like to be surprised. President Trump told us about his big surprise this week with epic fury. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that that might be their retaliation?
Nobody, no. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit.
Are you surprised to hear that?
I'm actually not. I think that at the end of the day, you can brief all you want, but the reality is once conflict started, it becomes predictable. What you try to do as a military is you want to be able to predict as well as possible what the reaction of the enemy is going to be when you engage them, but they are always going to try something or do something different than you anticipate. Part of the reason you go through the practice and the drills you do in the military is so that you can react in ways that are unexpected, so that you can at first, you try to deter them, and then you want to degrade their capability to do it, and then you want to eliminate it. And that's exactly what Secretary of War Hegseth and the President have done with Iran.
These Iranian generals, the third string, whoever's left, they're kind of threatening an eye for an eye now. The Iranian military says to U.S. officials, from now on, based on the information we have about you, even parks, recreational areas, and tourist destinations anywhere in the world will no longer be safe for you. Do you see that as a real threat if the Iranian regime has been so hollowed out already?
Even with the threat that it may appear hollow, you have to take them at their word. What they're demonstrating yet again is that they have no respect for international law. The rules-based world order never existed in their eyes. They do not care if it violates Geneva Convention. What they're going to do is they're going to lash out in any way they see possible. I mean, they're willing to execute 19-year-old wrestlers for participating in protests. They are ruthless, they will kill, and they have no moral or ethical compass whatsoever. And they will continue to do that. That's why this regime needs to be taken out and ultimately destroyed. We've spent 47 years, that the senator previously just mentioned, trying to deal with this regime, and it finally took the moral courage of President Trump to say, enough, we're drawing the line. Hundreds of Americans dead, thousands maimed and injured. It is time to hold this Iranian regime accountable for what they've done.
Kirk Lippold, you have a new book out. What's it called?
It's not old.
Okay. Yeah. But we don't talk about the young men and women that may be sent into this conflict. And what does victory look like? That's the question. What does victory look like? Does victory look like, okay, Iran goes, all right, we'll capitulate, you know, we won't send any more missiles, we won't create any more missiles, we'll have enough to defend ourselves if we're attacked, but yeah, we'll agree with you. Like, really? It's like a hornet's nest right now. You shook it. The hornets are, you know, laying out their stingers, and you're wondering, like, how are we getting stung? Well, it shook the hornet's nest. Like, what did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? Now we're dealing with this again, like I said. Where does this go next? Where does this go next? And how are our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, how are they going to be affected? Is this another Vietnam is the question. That's the broader question. Is this another Vietnam? And that's the question I have. Right. Now, I did not ask ChatGPT that, but I did ask, what is the update on the confrontation, right? The conflict we're having. It's an ongoing full-scale war between Iran and Israel and a U.S.-Israel-led coalition that began on February 20. Now, this is how Grok is framing it. It's a full-scale war. There's been no boots on the ground, though, but they're calling it a full-scale war. We can't be at war because, again, like I said, if we were logistically, everybody would have to go to prison because Congress is not involved. This is not funded. Like, what are we doing? Congress, I need y'all to get it together. You need to figure this out. Figure it out. Just saying. So they've got U.S. and Israeli airstrikes have targeted Iranian military infrastructure, and we know about that, right? And Iran's response include multiple waves of ballistic missile barrages against Israel, right? Reported in a 24-hour period on March 21st, hitting areas in central Israel, such as Dimona, near the nuclear reactor Arad, Tel Aviv, and others. These have caused injuries, over 100 in some recent attacks, property damage, and civilian impacts, though Israeli defenses have intercepted many. Iran has increasingly used cluster munitions. Okay. On the 21st, Iran launched 2 long-range ballistic missiles at the U.S.-UK joint base in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, over 4,000 kilometers away. One failed in flight, and the U.S. intercepted the other. This marked Iran's furthest attempted strike and demonstrated extended missile range beyond its previous claimed limits. And we don't know what's going on straight in Hormuz, leadership and internal dynamics in Iran. So for broader context, and I'm just going to say the conflict, an alleged war, stems from initial U.S.-Israeli strikes aimed at degrading Iran's nuclear missile programs, preventing nuclear weapon development. Yeah, that's what started all this. So I said, how is the conflict affecting airports and other large gatherings? Because that's what you got to remember. So you got DHS on the one hand, not funding the areas that we need funded for security. All right, that's why we even have the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. So you've got that part, and then you've got this conflict going on. So could these locations be on high alert threat, high threat alert, being that there are large numbers of people there? So you've got the airports. I got tons of people in there. If I were a sick regime, I would focus on the backed up airports. I'd focus on New York, Atlanta, and California. Why? Because those are the three of the largest international airports that we have on soil. And those are just facts. And they don't have to be hit with an external missile. We already have sleeper cells around the country. You know, those are the things that we need to be concerned about. And it says, yes, the ongoing U.S.-Israel versus Iran conflict, now in its fourth week, is significantly disrupting airports and raising serious security concerns for large gatherings worldwide. So we already know about the impacts on airports, but it's affecting Dubai. Okay, it's affecting Israel, near Tel Aviv. Over 3,000 flights canceled in the first days alone, right? And that's across Iran, Israel, UAE, Qatar. Largest gatherings in crowded spaces. Right now, we're looking at parks, tourist sites, recreational areas, hotels, and large public events. U.S. Department worldwide caution alert as of the 22nd warns that Iran-linked groups may target transportation hubs, airports, and like stations, like train stations, subway stations, large gatherings, tourist locations, shopping malls, entertainment venues, sports and cultural events, anywhere Americans or Westerners congregate. So a high threat level confirmed. Yes, authorities in U.S., Europe, Israel, and Gulf states have ramped up police, military presence at stadiums, concerts, malls, religious sites, and festivals exactly because crowds higher impact potential. DHS and local law enforcement are on high alert for proxy or lone actor attacks, right? Like vehicles, knives, drones, etc. So in the U.S., domestic risk remains low but monitored, but venues are adding bag checks, metal detectors, and canine units to avoid protests or demonstrations abroad. So in my opinion, it's higher than what they're saying. Now, this is a horrible thing to say, but I'm going to say allegedly. They want the people in the United States to have a false sense of security. So when something pops off, then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, right? But on top of, I can't believe that this happened, what would our response be? Do whatever you need to do to keep us safe. That's the problem that I see. Us giving up more of our civil liberties for this. What happened with 9/11? That's how we got the Patriot Act. Yeah. And that's what I see being the issue. So recommendations, because I'm in Georgia. Of course, this is Grok. Monitor the U.S. State Department travel site, TSA, FAA alerts. Enroll in STEP Smart Travel Enrollment Program if traveling internationally. For local events or ATL airport, expect visible extra security and stay vigilant. Yeah, because you have to. But again, are we in a rush to replace ourselves? Is this, in my opinion, the advent of robotics within our airports. Could TSA be replaced by robots? Everything that we do be automated. Everything. From the entrance and exit to the restaurant operations, which would include maybe humans in the back, but you wouldn't be interacting with humans, right? Just place your order. You might have a human serve you, but you have to pay for everything on the kiosk. They're already conditioning everybody to do this. I need people to understand this. Yeah. So is that what we're looking at? Is that truly what we're looking at? And with that, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into some more of this news about the conflicts going on. And